Well, I'm I'm sorry, I'm trying to read
Okay.
something. So, hey, Carol, how you doing? It's good to see you. Good morning. And you think you're the first one on from the community. It's a joy to be with you today. Uh,
So you'll see me pop up and then pop off.
okay. Okay, I just saw that. Okay.
Okay, Maria, can you speak?
Oh, sure, sure. I was just listening to the folks. How's so everybody had a pretty decent week other than the crop situation
Mm.
and the rain.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sound is great on StreamYard.
Okay, that's great. Okay, and Kenneth, how you doing?
Yeah.
And good morning. Hey, Daphne. I had an up and down kind of weekend. Went out. One of my best friends got married, so I ended up going to a mini college reunion, which was great.
Ah.
But then one of my really, I don't have best friends. I have sister friends, but no one was closer to me than Candace. And you met her, Marty, when I did the play in New York
Yeah.
that you supported. She died.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah. Yep. So we're going to talk about that
From
today.
COVID?
No. Not at all. Mm-mm. Nope. But it was devastating news. I got the news just as I'd landed in Los Angeles on Saturday. And her mother had been
Santita.
desperately trying to reach
Sorry
me.
about that.
Yeah, it's devastating. There's no one closer to me. And so it's like, whew, someone you speak to just about every day, several times
Oh
a day.
no.
And she is now out. She has left the building. But, she had done her work. She was a deeply, deeply spiritual person. And she had done her work. God bless her. So we're going to be talking about. I'm
She
sorry.
went with us to the She went with us to the restaurant.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And but we're going to talk about the top 10 and just really a lot of diseases and illnesses that we have that could imperil our health, that we're really missing in this moment. And she was someone who was very, very conscientious about her health, and she had a heart attack in the middle of the night.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. You know. So
Sending Reverend Yuri through.
so there's that. But I will go. And we'll talk about that. And we're going to talk about the Rachel Nichols story from ESPN. I thought it was fascinating, and I think we should talk about it. There's so many pieces that come out of that. So let me know what you all are thinking, everybody. She's just, Maria Taylor's just been offered a $3 million contract from ESPN, but now others are offering her counter offers, which is great, which is just going to drive her price up. It's interesting because although Rachel Nichols is this tremendous journalist coming out, having come out of Medill, and she has quite the record, Maria Taylor is a scholar athlete who has been a top level college basketball player. So, there are a lot of little pieces here that I think that we need to look at. So, and we will. So, let's go. We've got.
Morning, Reverend.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Reverend Yuri.
Okay.
Thank you, Maria and Marnie.
I'm well. How are you?
Lost, well, I guess my best friend this weekend. Bless her heart. Yeah, she had a heart attack in the middle of the night. Yeah. Very conscientious about her health. And all of that. So,
Wow. So sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So, it's a little devastating. Devastating. But one thing that gives me comfort, a friend of mine asked me, did she know the Lord? I said, did she? I said, and you would have met her at our events. because she would come to Wall Street and other events.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. So bless her heart. Bless her heart. Bless her heart. Brilliant. 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 I think she came out of Yale at 19. No one knew that she was a 15-year-old freshman there. She had a lot of different careers. Had a really, really, really rich life. Really rich life. But thank you, Daphne. It's a very painful morning for me. Very much so. So, but we have to keep on going, and that's to do. You have to keep on going because my journey is not done yet. Mhm. And there you have that. So we leave when our journey is done. So everybody, we're going to talk about this Rachel Nichols story, and Maria Taylor, and the person who's been left out of this story is Adam Mendelson. There were three people on this phone call with Rachel Nichols. It was Rich Paul, uh, LeBron James's agent, and Adam Mendelson, his PR representative, very influential guy in sports circles. And very interesting was she was simpatico with Adam Mendelson. He was like, between Me Too and Black Lives Matter, I'm exhausted. And on after that, right? And these are decision makers. These are people who determine how much money you make in
60
sport.
seconds.
It's a lot of little pieces here. So we're going to talk about that. We got a lot to talk about today, and so I want to hear from you at 773-763-978. And hey, A King from Memphis, Tennessee, love you. And thank you, Kenneth. Boy, thank you, Linda. Thank you. So let's get right to it. Let's get right into it because she in fact has kind of inspired the show today. Her passing. There's a lot that we need to watch out for with our health, and we're going to be talking about that. Okay. All right.
All right.
Because it's not just COVID out here, everybody.
10 seconds.
A lot going on. Lots.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Monday, July 12th, 2021, and you know what that means. This is my birthday week. Yay! Right. So many people have had birthdays this week. All of my Cancer people, and I guess the Leos too, who will be coming in. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCBT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. And radio, progressive Minnesota, my brothers and sisters to the north. And indeed, I'm using some music from The Sounds of Blackness. Gary Hines. Love you, Gary. This Maestro Hines, this musical genius. So much wonderful music that has such a powerful, powerful impact, and we use it on this show. And for that, I'm grateful. I'm going to be featuring something from an album I did some time ago. Some uplifting music too, but I'm going to stick with my guy, Gary. Everybody, call me or text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text. I want to hear your voices today. What about this Rachel Nichols story? But it's not just Rachel Nichols from ESPN. It's Maria Taylor. They're both very talented journalists. Both have compelling presence on the air. But there was, in that phone call that was leaked to the press, there were two other persons on that call with Rachel Nichols, one of whom appeared to be in agreement with her. We don't know what Rich Paul, who is LeBron James's agent, but this guy, Adam Mendelson, his PR spokesman, was very much in agreement with her. Just, I'm exhausted by BLM and Me too. I ain't got nothing left. I'm not mad at him, but I just think there's a lot to unpack in this story. Um, how women are treated, the solidarity or the lack thereof between black women and white women, and the people who are still at the top controlling still white men, right? And so there's a lot to look at here, a lot to look at. But if we are not united from the top to the bottom, side to side on that which is fair, we're not going to get anywhere, everybody. We're just not going to get anywhere. So think about that. And then we're going to be talking about um, the diseases that bedevil women in the United States. The number one killer of women in the United States is not COVID, it's heart disease and cancer. And in this pandemic, we have let go of a lot of that. And I want to talk about that because I lost really my best friend over the weekend. I just found out, and it's been devastating. Really, really tough weekend. I went to a wedding in Los Angeles. That was a joyous occasion. One of my best friends in life. We all came together at Howard University, and this is our anniversary year, in fact. And so it was a wonderful reunion. But just as I was landing in LA, I found out that my dear, 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 my sister beloved, Candace Simmons, had made her transition. And I want to talk with you about that. I want to talk with you about what we need to be watching out for. She was very conscientious about her health, but there's some things that clearly were missed. And I don't want you to miss these things. So, everybody, please like and share, like and share. Of course, we're on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, Santita Jackson and Friends, and I'm sharing it with Reverend Jackson's page, and of course, WCPT 820. And throughout the day, you can go to the Facebook of WCPT 820 so you can see and hear Tom Hartman and Stephanie Miller, and of course, my Joni Esposito at 2 o'clock. And so, the programming is 24/7, 365. You don't want to miss it. So, everybody, let's get right to it, and let me say hello to all of my morning stars. Come on over to the Santita Jackson and your friends and meet up with Carol and Kenneth and Daphne and Gary Hines, Maestro Hines from Sounds of Blackness, and Fatou. Are you from the Gambia? I think so. Linda, Daphne, Raphael, Brazil, Big Bree, Andre, Brian, Bacon, and Barbara Bacon. I said Kenneth and A King from Memphis, Tennessee. Carol from the left coast out there in Beverly Hills. Yeah, Carol, that's where the wedding was. We had a great time, But like I said, it was a mixed bag, but that is the way life is, everybody. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 73 degrees today, scattered thunderstorms. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 85 degrees and sunny. The Twins were triumphant over the Tigers, 12-9. The White Sox, triumphant, 7-5 over the Orioles. They'll be playing the Astros later on. And guess what? Who do you think is going to win this NBA title? I don't know. Phoenix leads 2-1, but the Bucks will not stop. They won't. They will not. They never say die, right? 120-100 over the Phoenix Suns, everybody. So let's get to some of these headlines today on the Santita Jackson Show. The U.S. averaged almost 20,000 coronavirus cases over the last 7 days, a 47% increase over the previous week. 19,455 cases were registered. According to a CNN medical analyst, a third of those are coming from 5 hotspots: Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, and Nevada. In these states, ICUs are packed and ventilators are sometimes hard to come by. Sounds like what we had in the past, everybody. Extreme heat, lots of high temperatures were broken in the western U.S. this weekend, and triple-digit temperatures continue to threaten the region. California's Death Valley. The temperature hit this, everybody, 130 degrees. Haitian authorities have arrested a man they say helped orchestrate last week's assassination of President Moise. But now it seems that this new Haitian government that's been installed, that they want America to come in. Now, that was really the fear of a lot of progressives on the ground in Haiti, that this new government would begin to ask for America to come in. And that's creating a lot of unease with Haitians because America did occupy. Number one, we did not recognize the Haitian Revolution for 60 years. And then we occupied them, America, United States, and France. and the Western powers have worked overtime to destabilize Haiti. We'll be talking about that more in the next few days. Oxfam, this report shows that 11 people are dying of hunger every minute in the world. This outpaces the COVID fatalities. Wow. This was according to a report published Friday by the international charity Oxfam. This report is entitled The Hunger Virus Multiplies, Deadly Recipe of Conflict, COVID-19, and Climate Accelerate World Hunger. A year and a half into the virus, this report asserts deaths from hunger are outpacing those of the virus. Well, congratulations to Richard Branson. He took flight with his space company Virgin Galactic, and it was a successful flight, everybody. Why does it matter? According to Axios, this very public moment of success could help buoy the company as it pushes to begin commercial service next year to space. What do you think about that? He had 3 fellow crew passengers, 2 pilots, and they took the flight from Spaceport America in New Mexico yesterday, Eastern Standard Time at 10:40 a.m. 6-person crew, Unity space plane, and at Unity's highest altitude, over 50 miles above the Earth's surface, the crew was able to experience weightlessness. We'll be talking about that before the week is out. Why is space exploration important? And, well, everybody wants to get out there. The Pentagon is seeing China's offensive space technology on the march. China, according to this Bloomberg report, is making sizable long-term investments in weapons designed to jam or destroy satellites as the nation seeks to rapidly narrow the gap in space technology with the United States, according to the top intelligence official for the Pentagon's Indo-Pacific Command. Maybe that's a new region for war. What do you think? Texas Republicans have advanced voting restrictions at a special session, everybody, after the Democrats walked out. Wow. Committees in the state house and Senate held overlapping hearings on highly controversial voting legislation during a rapid-fire special session. And guess what? The Republicans advanced voting restrictions. Wow. What do you think about this? Dr. Fauci says there is no immediate need for a COVID booster for fully vaccinated Americans. So what do you think about that? Are you fully vaccinated? Have you gotten the jab? Have you gotten both of them? Pfizer and Israel agree. New COVID vaccines are coming in August. I read a lot of their information because they are so vaccinated in Israel and coming out with a lot of the very, very interesting cutting edge information. So it's something for us to think about. Think about, everybody. And wow, Juvenile, the iconic rapper, has remixed his hit song Back That Thing Up into a pro-vaccine anthem called Vax That Thing Up. And some of his fans are very, very angry. The new track dropped Tuesday on YouTube and features Manny Fresh and Mia X along with Juvenile to encourage the Black community to get the COVID-19 vaccine. And people are not receiving it. Everybody's not receiving it with open arms. What do you think about that, everybody? Was that a good idea? What do you think? Evacuated residents from Crestview Towers in North Miami Beach to retrieve essential items, everybody. Wow. All the buildings around the Surfside complex that collapsed, well, they're having some challenges. And so, higher inflation, everybody, they say economists, Reverend Dr. Yuri, they say it's going to be here for years. For years, for years, for years. And guess what, Reverend Yuri? We do need good news after this. Do you know the U.S. fell to Nigeria in a pre-Olympic opener, 90-87? I don't know why that's shocking because Reverend Dr. Yuri, guess what? So many of these players are coming from Nigeria, on the continent of Africa, and they're coming from, they're coming from China. It's truly becoming an international game, everybody. And so, Dr. Yuri, as I see rising numbers of drownings in lakes and rivers and backyard pools, everybody teach your kids to swim. What's some good news, Pastor Yuri?
Well, good morning, Santita. Of course, you would start with the fact that the U.S. team did lose to Nigeria. I saw the end of that game, and I was, while not surprised, I was stunned. It looked like there was this expectation that the U.S. team was just going to win. They were expected to, and it was just going to happen. That's a different discussion for a different day.
But let's have it one day.
Yeah, we got to have it. Mindset means everything. Don't ever underestimate your opposition, because that may be the day that they actually come out on top. But there's a win in there somewhere. But yeah, it was shocking. Look, I was trying to figure out now. Am I going to need to? You had a long litany of stuff this morning. Just like, did all of that just happen? We've got assassinations and building collapses and all of this drama and on and on and on. I was like, if she says one more thing, I'm going back to bed. I was like, I need I need some good. But I guess since I'm here to bring the good news, I guess I might have to encourage myself. Let's see what happens this morning. But the Bucks did win last night. Come on, you got to
come on now. Come on.
You can when you can. That was all right with me. I got to tell you,
me
all
too.
Right with me. Well, here we go. Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities. Hey, y'all, come on, get up, get moving. It's Monday. Just because it's overcast outside, it's shining on the inside. I need you to get moving. Put your feet on the floor. Feel that cool tile coming back at you. It's a reminder that you're alive. I need you to take a deep breath of life. Fill your lungs and realize that you have another opportunity to walk in the victory that God has actually established for you. So I'm excited that you are here on Monday. Go ahead and start your morning beverage, whether that's a morning cup of Joe or tea or water in the drink. That's what. But I usually drink my water and my coffee. But don't hate me. Look, I'm trying to do better. Y'all pray for me. But let's talk. Santita, a year ago, it was amazing to me that no matter when I left the house, there would never be any traffic. It was, when I tell you, if there were a side benefit of that pandemic, it was no traffic. Well, as we're coming out of the pandemic, it would just so happen. The other day I was on the way to an appointment. Things are going well. I'm driving. Figure I left in plenty of time. And all of a sudden, I run into heavier than normal traffic. And I got to tell you, it was so frustrating. I mean, it took longer than I had expected. It usually wasn't this busy, and it looked like I was not going to arrive at my intended destination on time. And the longer it took, of course, the more frustrated I became. Look, I'm human too. It's just kind of what happens. And then I have these apps that's supposed to tell you how to avoid the traffic. They weren't working either. So that was my problem. What I was relying on to get me out of the situation was not effective. And I was already in a situation that I didn't want to be in. And so the question became, what should I do? I'm stuck. So couldn't find an alternative route. And then here we are sitting in traffic. And the only thing worse than that is sitting in traffic in the heat of the summer and nothing good is on the radio. But so here's what I want to say to you. Sometimes life is like sitting in traffic. Yeah, sure is. When we're trying to reach certain points in our lives, we often find ourselves sitting in traffic at times when we wouldn't expect it. Looks like we're not going anywhere, or maybe we're just moving much too slow for our expectations. And when that happens, we often try to find alternative routes to accomplish our goals. We try to find substitutes for following through, staying on course. And when you're sitting in the traffic of life, the one thing that I need you to remember is to keep going. Sometimes it is the traffic jam that is the test of your determination, will, and faith. So we could try to find another way to get there, but how many times before have we tried to find another path only to find out that the alternative route could not take us where we wanted to go, or it took longer than it would have had we stayed in the traffic in the first place? The funny thing about life is that patience, there's that word, I hate to say it, but patience is required to be successful and prosperous. Keep going. The road you're on is the right one, but you have no way of knowing until you get where you're going. And so the scriptures declare that the race is given to the one who endures to the end. So don't stop. Don't change your mind. Don't change your route. Trust that God is still guiding you through the traffic jam of life. God will get you to the place that you want to be and God wants you to be. The traffic jam allows you to rely on faithful endurance. Keep going. Remember, the greatest champions are relentless and they will do whatever it takes to win, even if it means taking longer to get there. It's not about how long it takes. It's about how enduring until you will get, how enduring you will be, rather, until you get what God has for you. So keep going. Just those two words. Write them down. Put them on a Post-it note. Write it on the mirror at the house. Get up. Keep going and let God continue to guide you. And you'll make it to the end. And remember, today is still the best day of your life. That's it. That's all I got. I know it's tough. It's traffic. But keep going. You're going to get there. And I'm cheering for you all the way. Thanks, Santita.
Oh, Pastor Todd Geary, Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire, Douglas Memorial Community Church. How can we see your services online?
Well, you can check us out on our Facebook page, Douglas Memorial Community Church, Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and we're still virtual. So you can sit in your favorite pew, wear your favorite outfit. You can sit next to your favorite person. You don't have to deal with the ushers and none of that. And I promise you, we're not going to pass the off plate, but I am going to ask you to go on and give something. But yeah, that's what you can do. And then Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, I do a Wednesday night power call, about a 20-minute hump day meditation to help you keep pressing through the vicissitudes. There's a word I learned of life. So we're gonna do that.
Okay, please forward the information. How can we get on that call?
Well, all you got to do is log on. It's open to everybody. You don't have to be a member of Douglas Memorial. The more the merrier. We just have a good time. I get to encourage, inspire, and pray for all who share every Wednesday night, no matter where I am. I might be in an airport somewhere. And I'll be on that call, just making sure that I get to run with folks who are still persistent, because they're not going to stop until they get all that life has for them.
God bless you. Thank you for that. Love it, love it, love it. Pastor, and lawyer, and vice president of Push, and he just, I don't know how he does it all. Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire, Douglas Memorial Community Church, giving us the good news this morning. We've got Dr. Shanina Knighton. Remember, everybody, at the top of the hour, and start taking your calls too. I want to hear what you think about the Rachel Nichols story. Rachel Nichols / Maria Taylor / Anna Mendelson, even Rich Paul, because they were all, they're all kind of in that, so I want to talk with you about that. But Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse, resident scholar at Case Western Reserve University, one of the world's few infection preventionists, a PhD. One of the things I appreciate about her PhD is that she puts it to use. We can she gives us useful information. We've got about a little out of 2 minutes before we go to this break. The United States has recorded nearly 2,000 new COVID cases for the third day in a row. I was at a wedding this past weekend, and I was at the table for the unvaccinated. I haven't gotten my shots yet, but I'm not an anti-vaxxer, everybody. I just want them to work through the trials and work out the kinks. That having been said, and I want to make sure that I'm healthy enough, to deal with any adversity that could come my way. Everybody in Los Angeles, where they're having a really difficult time, and mind you, now everything outside was helpful. Nobody wore masks, and to a person they said, "Well, I've been vaccinated, so I'm okay." I'm like, "Huh, Dr. Knighton? I've got less than a minute. What do you think about that?"
Unfortunately, I know that we've mentioned this before, but I have to keep reminding people that, yes, vaccines are a tool in our toolbox. We also have to remember that there are vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals, but that prevention measures must still stay at the forefront of our minds. So even if you're vaccinated, if you're not cleaning your hands, if you're not cleaning surfaces, then you potentially could still be the spreader. And it is important to remember that. And if you're not vaccinated, then you could still be the spreader and still vulnerable to severe risk depending on if you have certain health risks. So I just want to remind people, stay ready.
Hey, everybody. And I had to take a rapid COVID test. What was interesting as we go to this break was that I found out that as I walked into the clinic, according to the medical documents, I was COVID negative. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was interesting. I said, so I guess the whole nation in their thinking is COVID asymptomatic. Everybody's got COVID. Is that true? We're going to talk about that on the other side. And we're going to look at our health issues, everybody. The leading cause of death for Black women, non-Hispanic Black women, and for women overall in the United States is heart disease. It's cancer. It's not COVID. Are you ignoring some signs? Got a little story for you on the other side when we get back to the Santita Jackson Show.
Hello,
Hey.
how are you?
Girl, I'm doing okay today. Doing okay. Doing okay.
It's Monday for me.
Just just had a tough weekend, and this one I wasn't expecting. I said, I'm trying to take a breath, one breath at a time. That's how I'm doing it today. That's how I'm doing it.
And sometimes that's all we can do.
Oh boy, absolutely. Yep. There's some people you expect to walk through life with because you have for so long, and particularly when they're just a little bit younger than you, and you just don't expect. And you should, because we're all terminal. You just don't expect to lose someone, a friend, let alone someone you talk to every day. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. On things great and small, my girlfriend and I would talk about everything. Wow. And it's been a lot, but it prompted my thinking about our health. And she was someone who was quite diligent about her health. She lost a lot of weight and she'd done it in a very healthful way. She had really she really pushed meat out of her diet, and she was really listening to her body and feeding it what it needed. And yet she had a heart attack in the middle of the night. And the examiners have said that she went away very, very peacefully. Just left everybody here with a broken heart, but it's something for us to think about. And I just hope that that's why I spoke with Dr. Knighton about this last night. I said, I'm concerned that a lot of us are missing a lot of signs. And for women, these signs, particularly with heart disease, they're silent. Do you know what your blood pressure generally is? Do you know what it ought to be? Really? Those things are important. COVID is, as we're looking at COVID, we're ignoring cancer. We're ignoring heart disease. We're ignoring diabetes. And this is a problem for all women, black, white, red, yellow, whatever our colors. This is it. But Black women are especially impacted, and we're going to talk about that. And I just hope that you're taking care of yourselves, everybody, and don't ignore any little sign. So call me or text me at 773-763-9278. And of course, we'll be talking about the Rachel Nichols story at the top of the hour. I want to know what you think, what you make of this. Her remarks, according to different press reports, the people who work at ESPN said, well, we always felt
60.
that, whites have one conversation with black people and then they have another conversation amongst themselves. It's not really unusual, but what is a little stunning is what is bothersome is that these conversations determine how much money you make or don't make, how far you advance in your career or don't advance. I mean, just do you surge ahead or do you stay behind? And the same people who have enforced the oppression are still making the decisions. And we're fighting amongst ourselves. And there's just so much to talk about. There's a lot to unpack with that story. So, and
10
I
seconds.
wanted to talk about it. So, okay, thank you so much, Devin. We're going to come right on up and let's talk about these Ooh, and I'm going to for you, and we'll get right into it.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. I'm Santita. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and all over the world. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. We're going to be talking about Rachel Nichols and what's happening at ESPN at the top of the hour. But right now, we want to talk about your health with Dr. Shanita Knighton, registered nurse, PhD, resident scholar at Case Western Reserve University, one of the world's few and foremost infection prevention specialists. That's what she's an infection preventionist. But before we get into this, I went to a wedding. One of my best friends got married this weekend. It was great. It was beautiful. It was out in Los Angeles. And she requested that we take COVID test, just to make sure that we were COVID negatives. And so she said, up to 3 days before, that would be just fine. So I took my test on Friday because I wanted to wait as late as I could possibly wait. As I wanted to wait as late as I possibly could, Dr. Knighton. And what was stunning to me was when I was reading my medical documents, they said I was COVID asymptomatic. The perception was that I have COVID and I don't know it. And I test that I was negative. Wow. Is that the way this generally works? I mean, do we do that with cancer? Or do we have to? Do we do that with the flu? Say something communicable. Is that usual?
So I was going to say, I think in terms of her asking for individuals to get tested, that being a preventative measure, I can't be mad at that. Just
Me
the
either.
fact that she's saying like, hey, if someone's going to transmit it here, then that's different. But at least I know that we've assessed the risk of individuals not having it at least come into the ceremony. And so I'm sure no one wants to come in thinking that they're celebrating good and they're leaving sick. What does concern me about gatherings, or I would say the separation of vaccinated and unvaccinated, is that even though things may seem as though they're separate, if you're still sharing the same air, if you're still sharing the same resources, hands are still the highest transmitter of germs. And so a vaccinated individual can very well transfer germs to a non-vaccinated individual or a vaccinated individual and potentially make them sick. And so I continue to emphasize that infection prevention measures, such as making sure you're cleaning your hands, conscious about touching your face, conscious about the company that you keep, thinking about your cell phone, thinking about your keys, credit cards, different things that you are going to touch and that others are going to touch is very important when you are going to be in social settings. If you are not thinking about these things, it is important that you start, even if it's just cleaning your phone twice a day, even if it's making sure that you're not putting your keys in your bed or touching your keys and then touching your face or putting a dirty cell phone up to your face. These are things that you have to start thinking about, because I am sure that the majority of individuals that got COVID were not thinking that they were going to get COVID. I'm sure they thought that they were being safe. I've heard that so many times. While I was cleaning my hands, while I was doing this, you have to realize that there is a methodology now to our day-to-day lives that requires us to mandate the incorporation of infection prevention practices into our daily lives. It should no longer be optional about whether or not you are cleaning surfaces around you and whether or not you are cleaning your hands, as well as thinking about strategically and mindfully what you come in contact with.
Everybody stay vigilant. What did you say? Get ready. What did you stay ready so you don't have to get ready? I love it. I love it.
Yes,
You
and
know,
prevention is better than treatment.
absolutely. What is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Everybody, I was sharing with you offline that I had a great weekend. I went to Los Angeles. One of my best friends from Howard University got married, and it was like an unplanned reunion. We had a great time, and this is like a big anniversary year for us. And we were all acknowledging that, and so it was just wonderful. It was a wonderful get together. And but just as I landed, I got a text from a very dear friend of mine, and as soon as I got in the taxi, called him, and he gave me some devastating news. Someone who's been as close to me as a sister, is as close to me as a sister could be. My dear friend Candace Simmons had made her transition, and I had no idea. I knew I hadn't spoken with her in a couple of days, which was very unusual. But I'm preparing to leave the country in a few days. I'm going to share that information with you, and I had to go to Los Angeles this weekend, and so there's just a lot that I have going on in addition to my workload. And it was devastating news, just devastating news. This is someone who I've never been out of touch. I haven't been out of touch with her in more than 30 years. Someone I talk to just about every day, sometimes several times a day. Just my buddy, my girl, my ride or die. And I've been trying to figure out what happened, and it heart attack, middle of the night. And this is someone who was very, 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 very diligent, Dr. Knighton, about her health. Brilliant young woman. Went to Yale at 15, came out at 19. She took over her father's architectural firm when he was killed unexpectedly 30 years ago. And she was about 23 or 24. And it took her about 10 years to finish the work that he did. He was the most successful black architect, Henry Simmons, Hank Simmons, in the Northeast for about 20 years. Then she had been a banker. And then she had been into real estate development and became an ordained minister, really. That's really the last mile of the way in her life. And but I was shocked because I said, "How did this happen?" And in this pandemic, a lot of people have been really. We've been so focused on COVID that we have not seen that the number one killer of all women, whatever our ethnic or racial backgrounds are, heart disease. We've got cancer. We've got stroke. We've got diabetes. We've got Alzheimer's. We've got unintentional injuries. We've got chronic respiratory diseases like asthma, a lot of stuff, kidney disease, hypertension. There's a lot of stuff out here, Dr. Knighton, that we do not look at, and maybe we've just missed it in this moment. But I'm here to tell you, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. So, and Black women are particularly vulnerable when you look at the data. These are the threats to all women's health. With Black women, it impacts us disproportionately. So I wanted to unpack this with you, Dr. Knighton, because this is something that you've been passionate about. Just and what we have really been missing in this pandemic. Why women and heart disease? You know, the only way you can fight something is to know what you're fighting. What is it about women with heart disease? What is it?
So before we even get into that, I just want to, emphasize what you said. And you mentioned the fact that COVID is not the only thing that exists.
Yeah.
And what I noticed early on in the pandemic, which is what got me into a lot of the community work and caused me to take my work from just being in the clinical settings out to the community, is that when the message came, stay home, for some, it was not relevant as stay home for all. Meaning that what this meant is that people that needed to manage heart conditions, people that were up under a tremendous amount of stress, individuals that were mismanaging their diabetes, their high blood pressure, then said, it's not safe for me to go get preventative treatment or to go get my meds or for me to go see my doctor or for me to even establish a primary doctor, so they stayed home. And as a result of staying home, these people were essentially choosing between dying from COVID or dying from chronic conditions that they were already suffering from. Mm. And so this is how we got to where we are. But even not thinking about COVID, heart disease has been a problem for a long period of time. It is prevalent in African American women. Situations such as high blood pressure, obesity, having a family history of it are all risk factors. And we know that just like African Americans were disproportionately affected by COVID, African American women, even before COVID, were disproportionately affected by cardiovascular or heart disease. So they're interchangeable. Now, when we think about that, I'm just going to share some alarming statistics really quick. So it kills, and I'm talking about like heart disease, which can cause a heart attack or a stroke, kills nearly 50,000 African American women each year. Among those African American women, can you imagine that this is happening between 20-year-old women and older?
Wait a minute. Someone as young as 20?
Someone as young as 20. And it sounds crazy, Santita, but one of my very good friends had a stroke in her early 30s. Unexpected. This woman is a athlete. She's a personal trainer. She had a stroke in her early 30s unexpectedly. And I'm talking about had the left side residual. Mm-hmm. So all of the signs and symptoms that an individual will go through by having their right brain affected, which means that it affects their left side of their body because everything is crisscrossed. She was not able to move her arm or her leg, and she had to learn how to walk again. And this lady is in her early 30s and a pretty healthy individual. But what individuals don't know is that literally only 1 in 5 African American women believe that they are personally at risk. And when we think about that, we're talking about not a lot of women. We're also aware that 36% of women that know that they have heart disease, they don't understand. Only 36% understand that that is their greatest health risk. So of the other individuals that know that they have heart disease, they're not aware that they should be taking it serious.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you right there. Clearly a lot of people have heart disease and don't know it. Is there anything that's a giveaway?
So it's honestly never it's not the typical symptoms. Meaning, for example, if you sitting there and you have indigestion, that indigestion could be a sign or a symptom, but if you're eating unhealthy or you had a full diet, you may not pay attention to it.
Okay.
Unusual fatigue, when you think about being tired. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little bit more winded lately than usual, that could be because just in general, we have busy work schedules or we're a multitasking woman, where we're balancing sometimes stressful jobs and family life. Sweating, that could be, is it attached to menopause? Is it attached to hot weather? So these aren't like not typical signs and symptoms.
Well, I mean, Norma Jean said, how do you become at risk if you're a personal trainer?
Exactly. So the thing is, a lot of us don't even go and get it checked. So we don't go and we don't know to ask the questions. We don't go and say, we don't see a cardiovascular specialist, or we don't ask our primary to say, hey, I think I want to see a cardiologist just to make sure that my heart is doing okay. And this is something that we have a right to do because it is a preventative approach. It just requires us to nudge our provider and say, hey, my family has individuals that had a stroke, or my family has individuals that have high blood pressure. My family has individuals that have had congestive heart failure or some sort of heart disease. So I want to make sure that I'm checked for these things. I started getting checked at an early age because my mother had a stroke when she was 60, and hers was due to aneurysms. So apparently, aneurysms, even though they're rare, brain aneurysms actually run in my family. And this is something that I didn't know until our mother had a stroke. And so now, as a result of that, those are things that I'll make sure that I get checked every other year. So I don't go every year and say, hey, can you check my heart? But I'm checking into that because she also had high blood pressure. And so these are just things that we constantly don't think about. Now, even if, let's say, we quit smoking, we start exercising regularly, we maintain a healthy weight after not maintaining a healthy weight, we start eating a healthy diet, let's say we start managing our stress better, let's say we limit our off. We can do these things. We can manage our health conditions, which will help our heart. But what we have to be aware of is what damage have we already done. Some of the heart damage is not reversible, but we can slow it down. And so it's important for us to be aware of potentially what we're doing to our bodies. There are a lot of things that we can do, just those same things that I mentioned that won't get us out of the woods. Those are still the same things that can lower our chances. And so it's important that we're thinking about these things, including something as simple as how much salt intake you have in your diet, how much you are exercising. These are all things to think about because when women have heart attacks and strokes at early ages, it happens so suddenly, and these are things that we're not thinking about. But they are happening to women as young as 20.
Would you then, given the fact that all women, white, black, brown, yellow, red, indigenous, in the United States, all women, even though black women are at increased risk, all women are particularly vulnerable to heart attacks, to heart disease, which manifests itself in many ways, cancer, strokes, diabetes. Do you think that we should then self-advocate, go to our physicians and ask for tests? And if we do, like if you feel particularly winded, right? Or if you're particularly tired, number one, you need to have a primary care physician. And if you have insurance that's very broad, how do you get that, Dr. Knighton? And what test should you ask them for? We have about 6 minutes left in the segment. I want to know, just take us through what we need to do to help ourselves.
So really quick, I just want to point out that my training is a nurse. I am not a cardiologist. I do not specialize in cardiovascular health. But I am a nurse that has taken care of patients with heart conditions and have educated patients on heart conditions, okay? So with that being said, when you bring up just really quick the risk factors, and you are correct, it does affect both. It affects all women of all colors. One of the risk factors, I hate to say it, is even being a mother, okay? High blood pressure or diabetes during pregnancy can increase a mother's long-term effect of having to deal with some of these things. A family history of early heart disease also affects the individual as well. I also want to point out that for women, we are likely not to go seek treatment because we are too busy caring for other people. This happens often, and it's one of the things that is rarely paid attention to. So if you are a caregiver of children in your profession, if you are a caregiver to a parent, these are things that you should be aware of, because 9 times out of 10, we're putting someone else's health before our own. It is okay, for one, when they do the screenings, some of the first initial signs, when you go to a health screening and they do your blood pressure and they're telling you, hey, your blood pressure seems like it's a little bit higher than normal. Now, what is normal? Normal does have, it varies, okay? And so we used to go with the standard of a blood pressure of 120/80. Some people are notoriously lower than that. Mm-hmm. So they may live at like maybe around 100/70, and that's where they're at. So for them, an increase to a blood pressure of 130 may raise the alarm because it is high. So we do all range different. The thing is when you are being screened, and I'm talking about there are always health fairs. There is, let's say, at your job for personal health may take it. Make sure that you're at least checking your blood pressure every year or twice a year and keeping track of those numbers. Mm-hmm. Making sure that you're keeping track of your heart rate. These are the first initial signs typically that if something is going to happen, it would change through your vital signs. So typically, this is something that would be monitored. If you are feeling dizzy, let's say if you get up real fast or you sit down real fast and you're feeling dizzy, that would be something that would alert me to go to my doctor and say, hey, something's off. And ask for your heart to be checked, especially if you know that these conditions run through your family. They will then take you through a series of tests. Some of them do a stress test. So this is a test that they do for your heart to see what capacity your heart can handle. Sometimes that requires you walking on a treadmill with a monitor. If you're reporting heart symptoms, they may send you home with a Holter monitor or a monitor to take home. There's a numerous amount of things that can be done if you feel like you are having signs and symptoms. Before the signs and symptoms start, it is essential that you still go and ask for your vital signs to be checked. And if something seems off to you because you've been tracking them and you see it edging up, check after check, meaning let's say you get it checked in January, then you get it checked in June, and you're seeing the numbers go up, even if it's by 3 and 4 millimeters of mercury or 5 millimeters of mercury. So when we're talking about that 120/80 and you see the mmHg behind it, that stands for millimeters of mercury. So if you're seeing those numbers that are going up, then that would prompt you to say to your provider, hey, I've been tracking my blood pressure or my heart rate, and I'm noticing that it is trending up, and I am concerned and would like to be assessed for these conditions, particularly heart disease.
You know what? We're going to continue on with this conversation just as we continue to talk with Dr. Knighton. And, and of course, joining Dr. Knighton again will be Dr. Deborah Verholden. She's going to be back and she's going to tell us what she's been up to. She's had some stress in her life, and thank goodness she's come through it. I mean, she's probably healthier, well, but I'm going to let her tell her own story. But I think it's important that we really become proactive with our health. Know what our numbers are. Know what our numbers are. Know what your baselines are. You need to know that. You need to know that like you know the back of your head. You know how your hair is supposed to look after you've gotten had a great visit with your hairdresser, right? Okay. You should know about your health. You should know how you're averaging in terms of your blood pressure. You should pay attention, everybody. Pay attention. Please, 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 please. Because, Mary Tyler Moore was very slender, as thin as a rail. She'd been a ballerina in her youth. She was a raging diabetic. So your weight is not necessarily the expression of your health. It's not. So we need to really become a lot more diligent. Please take care of yourselves, everybody. coming up, and we just thank you, Dr. Dr. Shanina Knighton, because you make it so plain for us as our nurses do. Because when we go into the hospital, it's the nurse who has to tell the doctor, this is how they're doing, this is how much medicine they're getting. I would recommend that you do this. And the doctors, if they make good sense, they follow the nurses. So we love you. And thank you for that. Thank you for all of your genius. Rachel Nichols, what's going on at ESPN? And what happened in that phone call, really? And why are we not talking about Adam Mendelson, LeBron James' PR representative, who agreed with her? Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in a minute. Dr. Shanina.
Yes.
That was great. Thank you so much for that. Norma Jean says the doctors always tell her how healthy she is, and and she says I tell them to check my vitals. Absolutely. And about pregnancy, Lorraine said, "Whoa, hold on." She said I had preeclampsia in my pregnancy. What should So what should she be looking out for?
So she will be making sure that she's checking. So for one, if her blood pressure is 120/80, then she should go and be assessed anyway. Because, and honestly, even if it ain't just her blood pressure, preeclampsia, the fact that it spins your blood pressure up to the level that it does, means that there had to be some sort of heart stress. So nothing's wrong with her saying this is what I had during pregnancy and I should probably go and be assessed. Or I should probably have my heart assessed. I had these issues while I was pregnant. I want to make sure that my heart is still on the right track now.
Okay. Okay. Everybody, we're going to be doing this regularly because, it's the little things that we miss, Dr. Knighton.
Mm-hmm.
It's the little things. It's the little things. It's the little things. I mean, I know when I really was in a health crisis in 2004, I'd gotten so heavy. What was, my family were worried to death. They didn't think I was, they were like, if she doesn't do something, she will not be here. And the thing is, what was alarming to me was I flunked my physical, Dr. Knighton. And I was so heavy, I had to lie down during the physical, but I flunked all the same. And I went in for open heart surgery. And I just think it was a miracle on the table because the blockage that they said that they saw, they didn't find. But I can tell you, it's something that is. Oh yeah, it was nothing but a miracle. I had the angiogram. They scored at the dye for about 45 minutes to an hour because they couldn't believe that they made this kind of mistake. I said, no, this is a miracle. I said, I'm taking charge of my health. I said, God promised me that if I took one step, He'd take two. And so I want to thank all of you. And I said that on the table. I said, thank you. Because I had signed the papers to have open heart surgery. So the surgeons were in the theater, in the next room over. And they all said amen after I said that. Because they knew what they had seen. And I just think that, and so I've been very, very careful. And I want all of you to be careful. And so Linda said, please ask Dr. Knighton to emphasize symptoms and steps people can take on their own. Many, many of us are living on the financial edge and we're not going to see a doctor because we cannot pay for it. Tomorrow, could we talk about that, Dr. Knighton?
Absolutely.
Because, many people, having my rapid COVID test in Tulsa, because in order to go to the event where President Biden was, you had to have a rapid test because you have to be COVID negative to be anywhere near the president. Okay. And I went to an area. They just gave you the test and that was it. But I was in the Black community on Friday when I took my test. This like they gave me a mini physical. And I was like, whoa, what's up? And then it hit me. I said, I do have a primary care physician. And I just saw her. So I don't need to go through all this. I know I know where I am with my health, but most people who walk in don't, right? So I got it, but I'm telling you, I was gobsmacked when I looked on the papers and they said she's presenting as COVID asymptomatic. I said, whoa, why'd you put this on me? I didn't say that. They assumed the system. You're COVID asymptomatic until you take a test and prove otherwise. So maybe that's part of what they're doing with And you got to take the test. It's a lot going on, everybody. It's a lot. Tonight, we're going to talk about what you do when you don't have a primary care physician. Because even now, even with ACA, and heaven knows we need ACA, even with ACA, having a primary care physician is kind of like a luxury, everybody. And it should not be. It should not be. There's one person who ought to know some basic things about your health. There's someone you need to be able to call when you have concerns. And far too many of us still do not have that. So that's why Dr. Knighton is here every day, and believe me, she is busy. But that's why she makes the time to talk to us, because we need to know practically what it is that we can do. Okay? Norma Jean, you said this show was so informative. Thank
Sending
you, my
Attorney
sister.
Patillo and Dr. Bryant through, working on getting everyone else right now.
Thank you. So I'm going to let you go, Dr. Knighton. I love you, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do about the money. You know, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What we gonna do? Sending you much love.
The rest of the day.
You too. You too. You too. Bless your heart. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me see what happened here. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Santita?
Okay. Well,
Good morning.
good morning. And and Dr. Bryant?
Good morning.
Good morning. I have you out there in California. And how's your wife, my fellow Cancerian?
She's good. Thank you.
That's right. Happy birthday to her. Happy birthday. My birthday's at the end of the week. Is it? Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Happy early birthday to you.
Thank you, William. I'm looking up in the sky. Wait a minute. Is it? Yeah, hold on. Whew. Boy, yes, it's the 17th, you guys, and I do start celebrating quite early. Oh boy. But I don't know if I've shared this with everybody. Well, I'm going to say this when they release it, but I'm going to be going away with my family in a couple of days to France for tremendous honor that Reverend's going to get, but they have to announce it, and so I will wait for them to do that. The French embassy the French government has to release it, but we're very, very excited about it. But in the meantime, I'm so glad that you are with us, Dr. Bryant, because he's out on the left coast, out there in San Francisco,
30
Oakland.
seconds.
So he's up real early. Who do we have with us?
Dr. Bryant, Attorney Patillo. The phone in here still isn't working, so once you do your headlines, I'll run back to the other studio and try calling Aaron and Robert Liddell again.
Bless your heart. Okay.
Just, of course, it's like, everything just breaks right now.
Well, that's okay. What'd you say?
10 seconds.
Honey, come on. You know how it is in live. You know how it is in live radio. Everything it's a ghost in the machine. We're like, what happened?
I think there's a few ghosts in here today.
That's the way it works, honey. Wouldn't be live radio if something didn't make you go, what was that?
Sorry, I forgot to hit the music sent to you.
No
We're
worries.
live now.
Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Monday, July 12th, 2021. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820 in Chicago, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to call me or text me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. We're talking about Rachel Nichols, Maria Taylor, Adam Mendelson. Who's that? Well, that is LeBron James' PR representative who's had to come out and apologize for. We're going to talk about that. Because he was in this conversation, as was Rich Paul, LeBron James' agent. So I want to know what everybody said, and I want to know what you think about this particular situation that still has everybody at ESPN and around in a state of upset. So we're going to be talking about that. Who deserves what? And it seems like two women were put at odds, but then you're looking at white privilege and you're looking at women who are fighting for our place. There's a whole lot going on here. There's a lot to unpack, and we're going to do that on the Santita Jackson Show. And as we do, I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's get to some of these headlines. Chicago, we're going to have a high of 73 degrees. It is very cloudy, everybody. Scattered thunderstorms are expected today. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 83 degrees, sunny. The Twins, well, wow, 12-9 over the Tigers. The White Sox 7-5 over the Orioles. They'll be playing the Astros later on. And guess what? Phoenix is leading the Bucks 2-1, but the Bucks were not going to go down 3-0. No, they were not. So yesterday they were convincing, 120-100 over the Suns. Everybody, the U.S. has averaged nearly 20,000 coronavirus cases over the last 7 days, a 47% increase over the previous week, according to a CNN medical analyst. A third of those are coming from Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, and Nevada. In these states, ICUs are packed and ventilators are sometimes hard to come by. Wow. Experts say vaccine hesitancy is one reason for these regional spikes. Another reason is people are not being as vigilant, even if they've been vaccinated, even if they've gotten the shots. People are thinking that they're free and clear. You're not, everybody. Everybody can still get this. Start asking about therapeutics. What can you take? What medicine do you need to have access to if you get COVID? Because they do have some medicines that treat it, everybody. Remember that. Lots of high temperatures and were felt all over the country, well, certainly out west. And they have set records, everybody. Get this, everybody. In California's Death Valley, the temperature hit 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, wow. So what do you think is going on, everybody? Haitian authorities have arrested a man they say helped orchestrate last week's assassination of President Moise. Police did not say what the 63-year-old's motives may have been, but he arrived in the country in June with political intentions and was in touch with a Florida-based Venezuelan security team to recruit 26 Colombian mercenaries. Why did they disguise themselves, and how were they able to speak in flawless American English? How they disguise themselves as or introduce themselves as U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency agents. And now this government that has been installed are asking for America to come in and intervene and basically occupy the nation, which is what most Haitians absolutely do not want. We occupied Haiti not too long after their revolution, which, by the way, we did not recognize for 60 years. For 60 years, the Haitian had to pay the French $150 billion in gold bullion, not in paper money, in gold bullion, in order to get their freedom. Because, of course, this was their wealthiest colony, and the French needed to be paid to let them go. Wow. Oxfam, everybody, issued a report. Now, of course, they are the international charity. The hunger virus multiplies. Guess what they found? 11 people are dying of hunger every minute. This is outpacing COVID fatalities all over the world. Congratulations are in order for Richard Branson taking a flight with his space company Virgin Galactic. They were able to get about 50 miles above Earth's surface, and they were able to experience weightlessness. Perhaps space travel will become commercialized. What do you think about that, everybody? In the meantime, something's up in space. The Pentagon is saying that China's offensive space technology is on the march. China is pushing to develop anti-satellite weapons with capabilities from dazzling to jamming to kinetic, kill from the ground from space. All that. They are on the march, everybody. They're on the march. Texas Republicans are on the march too. They're advancing voting restrictions in special sessions after the Democrats have walked out of the House and the Senate, everybody. Dr. Fauci says there are no immediate plans, no need for a COVID booster for fully vaccinated Americans. But in Israel, Israel and Pfizer agree new COVID vaccines are needed, and they are coming in August. So keep our eyes peeled, everybody. Keep your eyes peeled. And what about Juvenile? Juvenile has done something that some people are calling controversial. Of course, you remember his hit, Back That Thing Up. Well, now he has a video and a new song, Backs That Thing Up. And some of his fans are none too pleased. Those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get right to it. A wonderful, wonderful panel to talk with us, and it will be expanding as we go along in the show. Rachel Nichols. Rachel Nichols, she is really iconic. Tremendous sideline reporter. She went to the Medill School of Journalism, and passed tremendous credentials, and but she got in a bit of a thing, right? In a bit of a thing. She was speaking privately, or at least that is what she thought, with Adam Mendelson. Who is Adam Mendelson? Someone we don't know a lot about. He really works behind the scenes. He is part of LeBron James' incredible team. It's an incredible team. He is his PR spokesman. PR spokesman. And Rich Paul, the iconic agent, young black agent from, of course, who works for, who has as one of his top clients, LeBron James. Well, they were all on a phone call, and Rachel Nichols felt that she could speak freely, and she got into a bit of hot water. She said, "I wish Maria Taylor, who is a young African American reporter, who, by the way, is a scholar athlete. She played top level basketball. She was a top student." And she said, well, and last year, ESPN said, we're going to give her a more prominent role. And so Nichols said in July of 2020, "I wish Maria all the success in the world. She covers football, she covers basketball. She also played basketball, everybody. If you need to give her more things," she continued, "to do because you are feeling pressure about your crappy long-time record on diversity," which, by the way, I know personally from the female side of it. Like, go for it. Just find it somewhere else. You are not going to find it from me or taking my thing away. Out and steady. Indeed, there was yet another phone call with with commentators from ESPN, Jalen Rose and Jay Williams, among others, who said, "Hey, this really is how white people feel when they are not speaking in these politically correct settings. When they are speaking amongst themselves, this is how they're feeling." But Rich Paul was on this call. So I want to know what happened here. And we have got to, let's unpack this. There's a lot to unpack. Uh, Dr. Joseph Bryant, the head of Rainbow Push Sports and the Silicon Valley Project, and of course, Robert Patillo. He has his own radio show, WAOK, in Atlanta. He's the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, brilliant civil rights lawyer. And of course, Pastor Bryant, we love you, love the fact that you wear all of these hats. But we're going to start with the reporter, Robert Littell, Black Sports Online. Talk to me. What happened? Who was on this call? And why is this still such a big story, Robert Littell?
Well, good morning to everyone. And it's interesting because this is actually something that happened over a year ago, back when ESPN and the NBA was in the Orlando bubble for the NBA playoffs and the NBA finals. Of course, during that time, the George Floyd protests and things like that were going very strong. There was a lot of sentiment, even from NBA players, should they even be in the bubble because of everything that was going on, in our country at that time. Right, also in the middle of the pandemic, ESPN, like a lot of other leagues, the NFL, MLB, the hockey league, at that time were very into the Black Lives Matter and letting the players express themselves. And, one of the ways I guess they felt that they could, help with that is, giving Maria Taylor a little bit more of a prominent role in the NBA Finals coming up. And Rachel Nichols, who's been with ESPN for a while, who's been in media for a very long time, was basically, caught on tape. She didn't know they were doing a lot of the Zoom and a lot of the remote calling. Didn't know that it was still being recorded. And I felt like the crux of what she was trying to say was that she's all for diversity. She's all for Black Lives Matter, as long as it doesn't affect her spot within the company and her jobs and her pockets and things like that. And I think that was the part where people really were upset about it. I think if she would have just kept it with the fact that she was just upset that she was having a position of hers taken away, I think people maybe would have been more understanding of that. And when the initial story came out a year ago, that's the way it was reported. But to basically say, as a white person, you're okay with black people getting opportunities to shine unless it comes at your expense, really rubbed people the wrong way.
Why aren't we hearing about Adam Mendelsohn? Because he was simpatico with her. He agreed with her. Now, who is Adam Mendelsohn and what is his role in all of this? And why are we not discussing him?
Yeah, Adam Middleton is one of a lot of what I like to call the silent power brokers of sports. It's a guy that you would have never heard of. You probably never heard of beforehand. There's a lot of guys like that. What they are, so very powerful, the businessmen or advisors or executives within companies or within the teams that really are the ones that kind of help the athletes or the owners or the media people kind of navigate, this treacherous land because of the United States. So he's someone that has helped LeBron with his More Than a Vote campaign. He's helped a lot of players, with different type of things. And he basically was the person that if you were a media person and you wanted to get in contact with LeBron for like an interview, or you wanted to get in contact with one of the Rich Paul clients, if you couldn't get in contact with Rich or you couldn't get in contact with other people involved with LeBron, he was the one that you would go to.
So he's the gatekeeper.
Like the middleman. He's the gatekeeper.
Okay.
And
I just want to know what the gatekeeper is. So you need to have a good relationship with him. You need to matter to him in order to get to Rich Paul and or LeBron James. Mm-hmm. And she felt that she was talking to one of the most powerful men in the industry, right?
That also trickles down to ESPN. I mean, this is a guy that could say, hey, we prefer Rachel Nichols on the sideline. We prefer Rachel Nichols to be doing these high. If you interview LeBron, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. We prefer Rachel Nichols do the interview with LeBron or whoever else. And that gets ESPN is say, hey, we want to get LeBron, and that means putting Rachel Nichols in a better spot. Then we're going to do that. So it's a very powerful man that she's planting these suggestions in his mind that she's upset about this and maybe hoping that he could do something about it.
Dr. Bryant, what does this say of these gatekeepers? He's a gatekeeper, but no one has talked about him and his power, his influence, and his role with LeBron James. It's surprising. I haven't heard a lot from LeBron James about this, or even Rich Paul. Talk to me, Dr. Bryant.
Right. So just looking at it from that perspective, it's unfortunate that in this scenario, those that are being most scrutinized, again, you're looking at Rachel Nichols, who has had a very positive track record for the most part in terms of her engagement. Obviously, an extremely good broadcaster, analyst, interviewer, and had a private conversation. And one of my first responses was, I'm glad my private conversations haven't been recorded, as I'm sure many African-American broadcasters, athletes, agents, owners, you name it, are glad that none of their private conversations have been recorded. I felt that this was a very underhanded act from the beginning that, again, any of us could have been victimized by, simply because when we are in private quarters, we have different conversations. Let's just be honest about it, because I don't think any of us, I can go biblical if we want to. He says, without sin, let him cast first stone. The idea is you have sinned, and there have been moments you're glad nobody recorded you. But the reality is the response has to do with privilege and the lack of diversity. I hold much of this at the feet of ESPN, because they've known about this so long and could have addressed it so differently. Because as Robert alluded, it did not seem completely malicious in that Rachel said, Maria Taylor is a great broadcaster. She's doing wonderful things. I just don't want her taking my job. Well, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that of every color and creed. And I think the fact that Mr. Mendelson is getting a pass to a large extent also speaks to white privilege and white male power, because a lot of times there's a different approach and apprehension about going after white males that's different than the way people are more apt to go after white women or people of color, because they've always been targeted anytime there's an error, mistake, downfall of any kind. So as a power broker, as a person of influence, I think there should have been more response to the fact that he said, I don't know, I'm exhausted between Me Too and Black Lives Matter. I've got nothing left. Well, that should have triggered something as well. But I think the issue is what Rachel said, was seen as something that was against or at least adverse towards our sister, Maria Taylor. And so the response is, hey, don't, do that to our sister, Maria Taylor. Don't, push her aside. Don't try to get all uppity with her. Whereas to some extent, what Adam said was actually worse. He just said it without any direct context other than saying that he doesn't want to hear any more about two causes that were happening so strongly last summer with Black Lives Matter and Me Too. So it's unfortunate, but he should definitely get more criticism that he has received. But I think the weight of criticism for the whole handling of the situation, there's got to be a lot more accountability with ESPN, their poor handling of this, having it sit on the shelf for over a year, not getting the two women together to try to work something out that was sensible and meaningful, and the fact that they don't have the best track record around diversity at all.
Well, why get them together? Why don't they get it together and get more people of all colors and backgrounds doing reporting, doing producing, Dr. Bryant? Because producers have the power.
It all needs to happen. I mean, again, the situation is Maria. The two names.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's a lot of issues. If I'm dealing with somebody that's standing in front of me who's hungry, I'm not going to talk about the world hunger. I'm going to deal with the person that's standing in front of me. And so the people standing in front of them are Maria and Rachel in terms of their positions and in terms of their work, in terms of their assignments, in terms of their potential contracts. And so the fact that they haven't, addressed that issue in whatever context other than, changing Rachel from not doing sideline reporting and putting a different African-American woman there, Malika Andrews, who's also doing a fantastic job. I think that was their attempts to continue to make sure that there would be some diversity in that role. But again, ESPN has a poor track record of diversity. So I think all of it needs to happen. And I don't think we need to avoid any of it from happening because, as you said, producers have the power, sponsors have the power. Mm-hmm. I mean, the story, even as simple as yesterday's ESPY Awards, which had a white basketball player who won the College Athlete of the Year from UConn, speak about the fact that, more white people who have privilege, who understand the plight of Black women in particular, should speak up on behalf of. So she spent more than half of her speech, acceptance speech, talking about the fact that sponsors and companies need to do a better job of promoting Black women because she's playing basketball because of the influence of Black women, and Black women need to have a better voice because oftentimes white women are promoted even though Black women carry the sport.
Absolutely. When we get back on the other side, I want to hear what you've got to say, Robert Patillo, because I know you got a lot to say, but we have like a minute before we go to break. And I want to know what you have to say. Call me, text me, 773-763-9278. 773-763 WCPT. What do you make of the Rachel Nichols, Maria Taylor, Adam Mendelson, Rich Paul situation? It's really Adam Mendelson. He's the power broker here who no one's heard from. I wonder what Rich Paul said in that conversation. I've got less than a minute. Dr. Bryant, Bob Lital, do you have any idea what he said? Or was he just silent throughout? Dr. Bryant? Robert?
Well, really quickly, I think there needs to be some accountability held with him because if white people are talking about us as African Americans and there's an African American in the room, what is that person saying to represent us? I think Rich Paul is amazing, but in this scenario, we haven't heard what he said or what he did in response to it. But definitely, anytime something like this happens, we definitely want to make sure that our brothers represent our people well, especially when it has to do with protecting our sisters.
Not to mention, I mean, and sisters, brothers, all of that. You're in the room because I marched to get you in the room. So I need you to say something while you're in the room. Otherwise, get out of the room. You don't belong there. I mean, I know.
So I I don't want to make any assumptions because he's done a lot of good. We don't know the story, so we can only deal with the facts on the table, at least
That's
for
right.
this moment.
That's right. I'm not. Look, I engage in loving critique. I just want to get things right. I'm not trying to hurt anybody.
Right.
I just know that the reason you're in the room is not because they fell in love with black people. You're in the room because people marched to get you in the room, okay? And I know Reverend Jackson's ministry. He was never afraid to go in the room after the president. That's what Dr. King did. You United States or another head of state. The national tradition is not doing that. You're the wrong person for that job. Because I ain't back in the room. Not somebody sitting in the seat. I don't need that. Because we got to get this right. More of the Santita Jackson Show. Want to know what you think of the Rich Paul, Adam Mendelsohn, Maria Taylor, situation. Rachel Nichols is taking the heat, but there was a lot of stuff going on in that phone call. Let's unpack it on the Santita Jackson Show. Gentlemen. Hello, hello. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and Robert, I'm going to come right to you. But you understand what I'm saying, Robert Littell? I mean, come on. I mean, because this does not take away from the great things that they have done. I love what Rich Paul has been doing. He's been changing the game in terms of how these young people deal with basketball as it's becoming this huge, it's already become a huge international sport where people are generating billions of dollars all across the world, and the players can do that too. So, feeding the NCAA, he's like, no, you don't need to do that. You need to come over here. Some of y'all need to go to black schools. I love what they're doing. But it's in those phone calls, Robert Littell and Dr. Bryant and Robert Patillo, that that's crunch time. Okay? That's, the buzzer. That's fourth and inches.
Right. One of the things was that he, she called him to vent, and I think
Interesting.
And yeah, right. So I don't think like you said, your real friends, give you some honest, pushback. But I think he was more just, I don't know, just kind of letting her get it out of. His part of the conversation was just more like, I understand, I hear what you're saying. Except, he wasn't really pushing back on anything, but he also wasn't. He just kind of let the friend get her frustrations out of her system.
Friend Mendelsohn, we're speaking of, right?
Mm.
He was letting a friend know.
Letting Rachel to some extent as well. I mean, again, if I call you and tell you I'm mad at something, that's just between me and you, I want to be able to tell the truth and let you just hear me. And everything me and you talk about one-on-one is not protest worthy because I'm just trying to share my feelings with you. And and I guess Attorney Patillo could deal with the legal issue behind this because there's a whole line of legal stuff. I want to hear from Attorney Patillo on the legal side of this because both Florida and Connecticut have legal requirements that parties, are aware that they're being recorded. I mean, and then who is this person that works at ESPN that had the nerve to take the
black
Zoom
woman
or whatever it was, and then then take it and then edit it, download it, made it, take the 30-minute conversation, make it a 4-minute video edit or whatever. I mean, that's some suspicious, underhanded kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, who was she trying to out? Was she trying to out Rachel? Was she trying to out ESPN? What was her purpose?
It appears ESPN because now this has uncovered the culture at ESPN. Because anytime because this is not one of their top producers, anytime this young woman knew she was putting her whole career on the line, she can be black in the industry, and she knew that.
Right. But just one thing, though, she was not the one that recorded it. She
didn't record it, but she leaked it, right?
Right. She gave it to Maria.
Right.
Said, hey, Maria. Right. Because it had got around
the office, more or less.
Right.
And she was the one that gave it to Maria and said, "Hey, this is what they're saying about you.
Yeah.
Talking about be aware."
Well, because look, I have worked at a network, okay? So people are clear on the culture, and I don't care what, because I was at Fox, but whether you're at MSNBC, CBS, NBC, you all deal with the same thing. You all deal with the same thing. And mind you, I don't think that being recorded surreptitiously is a good thing. I mean, well, she accidentally left.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Conversation's getting real interesting on the Santita Jackson shows. We talk about Rachel Nichols' phone call, but there were other people on the phone call. Robert Littell, Black Sports Online, he's their founder and editor. He said, Adam Mendelsohn, who was on that call. Rich Paul was on that call. And Adam Mendelsohn is like a real power broker. He's someone you don't see and he doesn't want to be seen. And powerful people don't want to be seen because takes your power away. But he's someone, he is LeBron James' gatekeeper. He's his PR guy. He controls the interviews. He does. And then you've got Rich Paul, who is LeBron James' agent. He was on the phone. We haven't heard from him. We haven't heard from LeBron James. Then there's the issue of a private conversation. She accidentally left because, last year we didn't know about all this technology. She accidentally left, one of her devices on and it was uploaded. Somebody heard it and they edited this 30-minute conversation. Thank you, Dr. Joseph Bryant, head of the Rainbow Sports Project, and collapsed this 30-minute conversation or so into 4 minutes, and it has now become viral. And, just given the politics of what happens in these networks, many Black folks and people of color and people who are underrepresented take a lot on the chin. And this young woman took the opportunity, gave this tape to Maria Taylor. This is what they're saying about you. She said, "Oh, okay. Somebody leaked it." And here we are. Robert Patillo, give us your reflections. And some people are saying that Rachel Nichols has a lawsuit on her hands because her privacy was violated. They said it's a tort issue. Don't know what that is, but talk to me.
Well, just to get the legal stuff out of the way first. So both Connecticut and Florida are two-party consent states, meaning that all parties to a phone call must consent to it being recording for it to be admissible in a court of law or any other proceedings. Now, in Florida, if you violate that, if you record a conversation about telling somebody, it can actually be a Class C felony. In Connecticut, it can be civil liability. So depending on who recorded the phone call, there could be legal exposure for either ESPN or for the recording party in the call. Secondarily, I think it's important to remember the context around when this is coming out. Maria Taylor's contract with ESPN is up on July 20th. She was offered during the bubble, during the pandemic, a new contract that would have paid her between starting off at $3 million a year and maxing out at around $5 million a year. Maria Taylor rejected that contract offer, saying she wanted, quote unquote, Stephen A. Smith money, which is about $8 million per year. Now, clearly, she's not been at ESPN anywhere near as long as Stephen A. Smith, and the ESPN executives rejected that out of hand. However, now, with her contract expiring and this controversy popping up less than a month prior to such, she's now got in contract. She's now been linked to NBC Sports, linked to FS1, linked to many other networks who probably will give her that amount. So this has been conspicuously convenient for her contract negotiations for this to come out right now. So it's going to be interesting to find out who exactly recorded this, who exactly leaked this, and how and the timing of it is very conspicuous in that she is going through contract renegotiations currently, and this does serve to, in many ways, bolster her ability to get that $8 million that she did want. For the context of the call, this call was not dissimilar to many calls I've been on in media, regardless of race, where someone says, look, God bless the guy, love him to death. You talk in the green room, your friends, your colleagues, so on and so forth. But when it comes down to it, if we got $5 or $8 million at stake, I want the $5 or $8 million, not the other person. And I think that with the full 30-minute context of the call from these people I've spoken to, it was more so a question of her saying, Rachel Nichols saying, look, if you guys want to give someone another position or another job or something, God bless you, but I don't want to give up something I've been working on my entire life because ESPN wants to right now diversify. You do that somewhere else and not on my back. I think that is something that most people in business or in most corporations, that's a conversation they will probably have with somebody they thought to be a colleague. So I believe the nature of the recording is very suspect. The timing of it coming out is very suspect. I think that Rachel Nichols will end up having a civil suit against ESPN if they aren't able to negotiate things out, just based upon the nature of the recording and being released and the pecuniary damages that it caused her, because I don't think there's any doubt that she's been financially and reputationally harmed by the nature of this recording being leaked at this time.
Pam from the West Side. Pam, what's on your mind?
Hi, Santita. How are you?
It's wonderful hearing your voice.
Yes. It's wonderful hearing yours, too. And I'm glad you made it back safely. Safe travel. Santita, I didn't know who Rachel Nichols was. Didn't know who Marie Taylor was, but certainly became acquainted with them. I guess I can understand the concern about the privacy of the call. I'm going to be honest. It bothered me what Rachel said. That bothered me. Now I hear the gentleman, saying that there was more context to the conversation. However, it just seems to me, I'm glad it was released. And
why are you glad?
Statement.
Why are you glad it was released?
Because we need to hear these conversations. We know they exist, and we need to hear them. We need the details that you bring about who are the real power brokers, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this situation, Adam Mendelson, that's a name that I was not familiar with. And once again, I'm not a big sports fan, but I do know a little bit about sports. So I guess my concern is I think LeBron should have made a statement. I didn't like Rachel's wording from what I heard, so that's what I'm speaking about. And let me be specific why. Because if she knew that these crappy diversity situations existed at ESPN, didn't she have time to say something? Didn't she have a platform to speak up about it? And I know nobody wants to take that on their shoulders, but if you certainly bring it up in your conversation and you feel like they're giving something to Marie Taylor, she didn't earn it. She's been giving something. I take issue with that. And lastly, I just want to say I saw her first, the first game. And it seems to me, and Cynthia, I might be paranoid, I don't know. Seems to me, and this is your wheelhouse, her camera angles, I never saw her get a close-up. I saw the other three gentlemen, when they spoke, had a camera close-up. I never saw them do that for Marie Taylor until they did the split screen with when she was talking with Malika. Now, that may be something minor, I don't know. But I believe there's going to be some backlash to this young lady's career.
Well, but nothing in this space. Just stay right there, Pam. Nothing, even how you're seated on the panel. That is all deliberate because there are powerful people on the panel. That's why the moderator's at the center. Or you're positioned in a way that empowers you or puts you lower on the pecking order, right? That's why I bring up producers and the senior producers. I mean, when Dan Rather was in the business, he did nothing without Mary Mapes. Because the best producers, they make or break your show. You're working with them, and they're very powerful in the industry. And so I think that it's important for us, Dr. Bryant, to know why Rainbow Push and different advocacy organizations, when we say what we're fighting for, right?
And that brings me to my next point, if I can ask this question quickly. So, Santita, because I know the work that Reverend Jackson has been trying to do with the sports industry. So let me ask this to your guest. If any community organization wanted LeBron or some of the other players to do an event or to take on a cause, they would then have to go through Adam Mendelson. Am I understanding that correctly?
You know
and
what?
If he didn't okay it.
Let me say this. Sport has changed tremendously since I was a child. That's part of the reason that we had to step away from Expo, because there was a time when you went through black people to get to the big black artists. Somewhere in the early to mid 70s, when black people really broke out in entertainment, that changed. And so and then you saw that with sports stars. Gale Sayers lived up the street from me when I grew up. He was a big star then. And when I was a child, our neighborhood, we kind of desegregated the neighborhood because you could not. George Hallis, who owned the Bears, everybody had to buy Gale Sayers' house because it was a restricted community. Really nice little area in the middle of Chicago, right? So, but there came a but after big Bear stars lived out in the suburbs, like the big Norm Van Leer. You had access to him when he was with the Bulls. But then, and this happened in city after city after city. After the early to mid 70s, in the aftermath of the height of, say, the Dr. King era, you got these black sports stars away from the city, and they did not have black representation anymore. Can I get an amen, panel?
You have an amen, because I've seen that just over the years.
Of course.
Sure,
Dr.
Listen, thank you.
No worries, Dr. Bryant. Why don't you first?
Sure. So the caller brings up several important points. It's starting with right there, Santita. You're absolutely right. A lot of African American athletes are now handled by different white companies, agencies, organizations, PR people, and the like, and that's become extremely common. I know Brother Latal can speak to that as well, because a lot of times, he'll be one of the few black media faces in the crowd, as well as when you look around and see who's handling the athletes, their PR rep, their manager, their management companies. And that's why Rich Paul's role is so valuable to us, because he has ascended to a position of great power and respect within the industry. And they were trying to blackball him because he didn't have the same educational path as some of the white agents around the sport. And so that there was some pushback from that. I'm glad that he was able to withstand those issues, because you're absolutely right, Santita. Over the years, unfortunately, black athletes have not selected to a large extent to be represented by African Americans as their agents, their PR people, their accountants, their wealth management advisors. And so it's important for us to keep that before African American athletes. And some of the things that Reverend Jackson does advocate for is just that, to be able to introduce athletes to people that are credible African American folks that can serve them well. And I think that's a very important point. The close-up and the production of Maria Taylor on air, she's had wonderful coverage as a sideline reporter, as a studio announcer, moderator. And so she's done a great job, and they have upheld her in some positive ways. I know there are times that she is merely sitting in the middle as moderator, which, as you say, is a position of power. And so they do close-ups on the NBA players who are giving the analysis, but as the moderator, she's still the one in charge and still the one in control. And so that should be applauded, and that's the normal seat of authority. And so she's in a great role. She's ascended very well in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, she hasn't been around long as Stephen A. Smith. She also hasn't been around as long as Rachel Nichols, but she does deserve to be respected. She does deserve to be paid. And I think it is something that Attorney Patillo mentioned, the conspicuous nature of the timing of all of this around her contract is very interesting, mm-hmm. because this all came out a year ago. This incident happened a year ago, and so it's just very, against the best term, that it's all coming out now. Having said that, though, to your caller's point, what Rachel Nichols said about, Maria Taylor has done a great job. She's doing a good job with this, that, and the other. I just, don't want her to take the role that I play. I think many people feel that same way about any job. I'm the manager at McDonald's. I'm cool with, all these other people going up the ladder. I just don't want to be bumped from my manager's position at McDonald's. I think that's kind of a employee-employer mindset. And so for her to have that conversation with people she knows and trusts, I think that's the conversation that many of us would have with, black, white, or green. I think the idea that it's a white woman and it's a black woman, of course, heightens our sense of concern, because we never want, sisters to be pushed aside by anyone. But it just doesn't sound like there was malicious intent. It was more protection of what's mine. And so that could go a lot of different directions. And I don't think it just from the conversation, you can't read people's minds. You don't know her heart. But just from the brief portion of the conversation, she affirmed Maria Taylor and then said, don't take what I've been doing just because she's rising up, because there are plenty of places that can happen. But to the other point, which I think is extremely important, she mentioned the lack of diversity at ESPN.
Sure.
Many of us have worked for and been a part of companies where diversity wasn't as strong as it could be or should be, and we just had to find the best ways to make those fights happen. That's why what Reverend Jackson does and what Rainbow Push does is so important, because when the people in the company can't always speak for themselves, it's our responsibility to make sure that they have voices outside as well as having positions inside to try to make some difference.
That's right. But I think it would have been different had she been speaking to someone black. Because the thing is, what people also need to understand is that there can very quietly, the people with whom you are negotiating your contract will tell you that they will not work with your black agent or your black lawyer. That's very real too. So, that's why
but then there's a black agent on the phone who's the agent for the most powerful guy in the NBA. So it's just a really
right. Because these people have the power now. They can say we're not going to go negotiate with him and lock him.
ESPN has to do a whole. There's got to be some cleanup at ESPN at the end of the day. I think they need to carry a lot more guilt in the whole situation, because they failed on multiple levels.
Yeah, they did. But I think that also Rachel, to be fair, and I like her a lot, and I think she does great work. But there was some white solidarity there, because that was Adam Mendelsohn's response. In that edited conversation, we don't know all that happened there, even though you've gotten more of the conversation. So there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot. Robert Littell?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, like you're talking about, that other people are mentioning is that the culture of ESPN, you're seeing a lot of the former black employees, high-profile ones, who work at ESPN, Jamel Hill, Mike Hill, Kerry Champion, Michelle Beadle, and others, who's white, actually speak about, the culture, Dan Lebertard, of ESPN. It doesn't seem like a place when you leave and you have a black face that you leave with a good taste in your mouth, which I always say lets you know that a lot of times these big companies, these sports leagues, when they talk about diversity, when they talk about Black Lives Matter, it's more about PR. It's more about trying to look good for the public, and not actually what's really going on within their walls when you get to the rank and file of employees. And I think ESPN, like the NFL and others, have been exposed when everything was going on in 2020, of trying to take advantage of that situation to make it seem like they were supportive of the causes. But I think Rachel and others now are kind of pulling the blanket back on that. And you're seeing that, that was just maybe more a lot of lip service, and the actual reality of what's going on with that company is really no different than almost every major company in the United States of America, where, black people feel uncomfortable about their position there. They feel uncomfortable about how the majority of their superiors, their bosses, are white men, even though they have black faces, on television. Stephen A. Smith made a famous quote about how the first thing when he wakes up in the morning is how can he make his bosses more money and how can he get a piece of it.
No, that was his thought. Wait. His first thought was how. His second thought was. Okay. I just
How
want.
can I get a portion? Right. And I think that's really the that people are seeing that what you're seeing in the front facing is not necessarily what's going on behind the scenes, and I think there's a real problem in figuring out. Okay, we know it. How can we correct it, and can we correct it when these companies and these people behind the scenes that we don't even know have so much power?
Well, we need to understand how this works. That's why that's why you all are here today, to talk about how this actually works. I come from network television. I still do it. And I know the tremendous power that a producer has. I know the tremendous power that different executives have. And I know that they have meetings all the time about how this story is going to be handled and how this is going to work. And who they decide who's going to be the marquee player. They know to the minute whether your ratings go up or down when you come on the air. There is science in this, everybody. And this is political. This is power. So I mean, I just think Robert Patillo, we need to understand how this all works. That's why I wanted to bring out all the people who were on the phone call, Robert, because it wasn't just Rachel Nichols. And for us not to know who Adam Mendelson was, and he did have to come out and apologize. He said, I was insensitive. I should have been more sensitive and I shouldn't have handled it this way. Yeah, because you're the spokesperson, you're the gatekeeper for the biggest guy, for the biggest basketball player in the world, in a world sport. You were pushing back against Black Lives Matter, which is something that your marquee client advocates. You were pushing back against Me Too. So Robert, what's our takeaway? I got a couple of minutes here.
Well, I think the takeaway should be that this is almost like going to find out how sausage is being made. These are the conversations that go on behind the scenes. These are how the entertainment products that are put in front of your face are produced. You have to look at all media and all consumable media with a very suspect eye, because these are the conversations that take place behind the scenes. And Rachel Nichols getting caught in this, I think, is unfortunate because, as you said, I don't think she was being malicious. I think she took a position would be very similar to the position many of us would take when it came to us missing out on potentially $5 to $8 million a year because someone else is taking your spot. But we do need to understand this is how media is created, how media is consumed, and also hold these networks accountable on putting people in this dog-eat-dog type of world where they have to snip and backbite and go through all these office politics instead of just simply being the best reporter, best journalist they can be.
Well, and I think that what black women were wanting, Dr. Bryant and Mr. Lital, Black Sports Online, everybody get involved in that. It is fantastic. If you want to get some of the best news, that's it, Black Sports Online. We want some more solidarity. Octavia Spencer, the great Oscar-winning actress, was not getting paid what she needed to get paid. And one of her white female colleagues said, no, you all pay her or I'm off the project. That's what we want. So let me start with you, Robert Lital, and I'm going to let you close it out, Dr. Bryant. I got less than a minute for you, Robert Lital. Black Sports Online, everybody, get involved.
Yeah, I think, with sports media, and that's where I can speak of, it's really a dog-eat-dog world. There aren't a lot of allies when it comes to, are you taking, my spot. I think one of the great things about Maria Taylor is she takes a lot of the young black women journalists under her wing. And I think we need a little bit more solidarity within, each other because, we don't have a lot coming from the other side. I think it's great when white people do, stand up for inequality and see things like that. But the reality is in this business where the jobs are shrinking
and are going to people that maybe aren't as qualified as they need to be because they're influencers or they have a lot of followers or they go viral. It's really become a competitive industry where, as I talked about earlier last week, people will stab you in the back. But at
In the
this point,
chest.
they'll stab you in the front. That means, them getting to where they need to go. So everybody, I think, needs to watch their back. And as someone that's had private conversations like Dr. Bryan spoke about, where you're trying to rectify a situation, you're trying to, talk honestly about stuff that happened in the past, and then to see those private conversations go public, it really internalizes what you talk about to people, and you really start kind of just looking out, for self. And that's kind of where I think people are right now, at least in sports media.
Well, no, in all media. Look, I tell my father when he's out in public, don't say anything because people turn on their phones and they're recording you. That is where we are now. We have technological advancement, but we do not. The morality has not caught up with this. The ethics have not at all. Going to stay right here on the Santita Jackson and Show to get some closing comments from this tremendous panel. What are we going to talk about tomorrow? Tune in and find out. I'm Santita Jackson. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. We're still on. I've got a lot of people. What are your closing thoughts?
If you haven't had a chance to hear the acceptance speech of Paige Buckers from UConn last night on ESPN, college athlete, women's sports athlete of the year, she spent 2/3 of her acceptance speech talking about Black women and the awesome path of Black women and how she is the benefactor as a white woman of the path that Black women have forged in sports, and white women like her should do more that they can, or as much as they can, to put a bigger light on Black women. And she said that sponsors and teams and leagues need to do a better job of highlighting Black women. And I think that's a powerful message coming from a white woman. And I think that's the kind of messaging that we all need to embrace, because when people have not have a chance to be celebrated, we who do have a voice, do have a platform, like yourself, Santita, thank you for being such a champion of all of these causes. Robert, with his amazing Black Sports Online, Attorney Patillo with his radio show and his work as a advocate for justice. We all need to use whatever space God has given us to make sure that the least of these are raised up and visibly seen so we can celebrate them appropriately.
Amen to that. I mean, because before you go, Dr. Bryant, this is why advocacy is so important. When I was a child, or my brothers, my sister and I were growing up in school, sometimes our classmates would tease us, your father doesn't have a job. What does he do? What does he do? This is what you do. Because you need advocates.
Yes.
You need advocates, and you need to understand how an industry works. See, that's why ownership is so important. Producers are so important. That's why, hey, wait a minute, I know because I am a producer. And you determine who gets on and who does not get on. You determine how you the conversation cut. The producer holds tremendous power. And the biggest producers oftentimes are bigger than the talent. The biggest talent are also producers. When you look at Oprah Winfrey Show, when you look at Greg Mathis, Judge Greg Mathis, along with Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry, he is the third biggest producer in all of television, everybody. He learned that early, learned it early, that in order to have power, he could not just be talent. Okay? So you need to understand how an industry, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at, Dr. Bryant and Mr. Lital and Robert Patillo, how the industry works, because these guys who own ESPN, who own the sports teams, can decide not to negotiate with a Johnny Cochran, with a Londell McMillan, who got Prince out of his. I'm going to call Londell because he's the young Black lawyer. I don't know if Londell was maybe 30, maybe, when he got Prince out of the contract with Warner Brothers, which no one thought he was going to be able to get out of. When George Michael tried to do something like that, they shut him down in the industry. So what Londell did was absolutely it's an iconic move. And he completely changed the game in the industry. He got the slave off of his face. But these people can decide not to negotiate because they will tell you, because they will tell you who they want to have represent you, Dr. Bryant and Mr. Littell. They will, quietly. And your money will depend upon who your representative is, who your lawyer is, who your team, because they make sure that these white folks, and mind you, these little white agents, they don't, their educational background didn't prepare them to be agents. They're generally friends. They were generally fans. Get out of here. That's why because he didn't come through a particular system, and so he understood how to work outside of it. Oh, give me a break. We need to know how this thing works. Now, anybody want to say anything else? This is when I get hot. Hot. Robert Patillo?
Well
Robert,
said.
look, I mean, it's just like, let's talk about how this thing really works. Because after George Hallis bought that house for, Gail Sayers, you used to see the Chicago Bears and the black, they lived with black people. But after they became huge, after they desegregated the game and just became huge, suddenly they were out in the suburbs. You didn't even see them. And they did not have representation. And it's not just black representation, they didn't have representation that was sensitive to their positions in the black community and how, and the regard with which they were held. And you see it. I mean, that's it. Because you can have some black folks who are atrocious in terms of their sensibilities. That's what I'm looking at. I'm kind of looking beyond color. I think it's important to empower black people, but I think I want to empower black people who want to empower me. If you want to empower someone else, I'm not going to let you represent me. Sorry. I'm just not going to do it because you're not representing me. You're making money off of me. And I'm very clear. My lawyers I employ. Your thoughts? Anyone? There? Dr. Dr. Bryant? Robert Patillo? Is anyone still there? Robert Littell?
Says they're there.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm processing, what you were saying, and it's bigger than Rachel Nichols and Maria Taylor. But I think one of these things, it shines a light on everything that's going on, and I hope that people can drill down on it because no offense to Rachel or Maria, they're both multi-million-dollar employees of ESPN. I'm more concerned about the young lady that gave Maria the video, who's probably making $40,000-$50,000 a year, had her things cut. What she was doing was demoted, and then eventually had to leave the company. Like, where's her mental health? ESPN could put, maybe not give you a referral, and that could cost you opportunities, for jobs in the future. Who's taking care of her? I think those type of things we really need to focus on while we're talking about Rachel and Maria and Stephen A. Smith and all of these other people. It's the trickle down effect. It's the like you said, the person that's working 12 hours a day that's cutting the video in the middle of the night, who gets punished because they need someone to punish, who's taking care of her and making sure that she's okay.
Robert Patillo, you want to say anything?
The only thing I would say is if you remember back, just to your point, if you remember back when Vince Young got drafted, when he was coming out of Texas, probably 15 years ago now, one of the big controversies was he was going to allow his stepdad, who was a lawyer, represent him. And his stepdad said, I'm going to take the last contract from last year, change the numbers around, increase for inflation. It's not that hard. Kind of demonstrating that other people, you didn't have to use these big mega corporations, these big mega agencies. And that is part of the reason that Vince Young's career never took off the way that it was supposed to, despite his talent. He was blackballed in many ways. After winning Rookie of the Year under Jeff Fisher and the other folks down there in Tennessee, because he used not the agent that they told him he was supposed to use, and he never got the opportunities he really deserved, given his level of talent. So there are still those gatekeepers who are going to keep people out of the room. Even when LeBron James was going to come up on free agency the first time in Cleveland, they went to meet with Phil Jackson and with the New York Knicks, and then Phil Jackson said he came in with his posse, talking about Clutch Sports and Rich Paul and so on and so forth. He would not take this group of young black men seriously, and now we hear Jackson, 20 years later, and it all comes into context and makes sense as to why this fraternity acts the way that it does and why it's so difficult for us to break into all parts of the field outside of running and jumping and entertaining.
Anyone have anything else to say? Oh, I mean, it's all very political. I mean, really, this is when the rubber meets the road. Who's allowed to negotiate for you? Who is allowed to be on your team? Because if you have the team that the powers that be like, you can make all the money you want. Now, mind you, they will control you. There's someone we know who was one of the world's biggest entertainers. He tried to retire, and his team told him, because his health was beginning to fail. His team told him, we sympathize with you, we hear you, but you need to go get you a few weeks rest. But let me tell you something. If you retire, you're going to lose your house because we own it. Those cars you like, we own those too. And on and on and on. It's a very interesting thing that people, when they tried to own themselves, Jackie Wilson has a massive stroke right before he's about to go to New York to get his money and to own himself. Sam Cooke dies under mysterious circumstances. I'm from Chicago. I know people who know him. My pastor buried him, Pastor Clay Evans. No one believes that he behaved in an ungentlemanly way and attacked a woman. Nobody who knew him, and people knew him well. This man was on his way to New York to deal with his business partner who had tricked him out of his money and his ownership of himself. Jackson was trying to stay alive because Michael Jackson had the temerity, he had the nerve, the sheer unmitigated gall to demand that he be able to own himself. People will tell you that as a child, he used to sit up under Berry Gordy and John Johnson and his daddy. Yeah, his daddy. Everyone that, all these big black daddies who are business minded, like Richard Williams. Yeah. Let me see. Joe Jackson, who teach their children to own themselves. Think about that. Think about it. Think about Otis Redding, who was trying to own himself. Create a label that he was going to sign Aretha Franklin too. How about that? Oh, look, I have a story for you. And it's ownership, self-ownership. Not being a slave. Do you know that when Michael Jackson was able to secure that catalog, and I love Paul McCartney, but I don't like the way he handled Michael Jackson. Because if you just read Jet magazine, which I read faithfully every week, what he did was, when this catalog, and it was a minor catalog, when it went up for sale, he went to Paul McCartney and he said, you know what, Robert Johnson, he was the chief at Jet at the time. He said, you know what, Paul, there's some of these songs in this catalog. Not all of them. Some are yours. And Paul McCartney looked at the catalog. He said, those are nothing songs. Just go on and go on and good luck. Go on and bid on it. When Paul McCartney saw the numbers swelling, because he expected it to go for 10, 15, 20 million, but when it went up 29, when 40, he said, whoa. He tried to stop Michael. Michael said, now the system, it's a blind bidding process. You told me it's a business, Paul, so I got to let it go. I got to let it ride. Paul McCartney said that Michael tricked him out of his catalog. You know what was in that catalog? Little Richard's catalog, Bo Diddley's catalog. That was not his catalog. So that catalog, he have the right to own Bo Diddley. And Michael Jackson not. And by the way, Michael Jackson tried to give Little Richard his catalog back, but he called Little Richard himself and said, I need you to come and see me, sir. And when he saw him, he said, you know what? I owe my career to you. And look at what I found in this catalog. Your music. I want to give it to you because this way you won't need a retirement plan. You will never have to work again. They would not let him do it. You need to understand the politics of this situation, and you need to understand why the people who are under the boot need advocates. You need to get involved in your organizations, and whatever sacrifices you need to make to support the organizations that support you, you need to do it. And that's something we can, for Black people specifically now, that is something that you must do. You cannot ask someone, you need to advocate for yourself. You have the power to do it. Advocate for yourself. People treat you differently when you respect yourself. When you respect yourself enough to get the people who advocate for you, when you take care of them, they respect you. They might not like you, but they won't play with you. They won't treat you like a child. Oh, even a slave. How about that? Self-advocate. And yes, right. Frankie Lyman, all of them lost their catalogs. And Sam Cooke lost his catalog, and he spent a lifetime advocating for people. When you saw him in the casket, you said, "This is not the Sam Cooke I know." They broke his face. And he had planned to go see Alan Klein 2 days after he was killed. That's what they had to do. No one who knew that believes that he didn't have to chase women. Women chased him. And that's why he was genuine not to chase back. Not that he didn't like women, because he did. I'm glad to see a man who likes women. I like that a lot. But you need to be clear. Why was Wall Street celebrating when Michael Jackson died? Really? It was a big article in the New York Times. Why now Wall Street was celebrating when Michael Jackson died? They were able to try and pick his catalog to pieces. But you know what? Michael got them because Michael had kids. So whatever they got, they have to share with those children, with Paris, Blanket, and Prince. How about that? Thank you, Michael. He kind of got him in the end. Think about it. Think about it. You need to understand what this power thing is about, and take yours. You're generating, your talent is what drives these industries. That's why I was furious. Dr. Bryant, when LeBron James, when President Obama stopped the boycott last year with the basketball players, I was upset about that. I was like, wait, they can completely change the game for all of labor. They'll just go out and play. Are you kidding me? They shut the NBA down when they decided during playoffs that they were not going to play because they were tired of watching black folks getting killed in these streets. Grow up in your politics, everybody. You will not be treated like a grown person until you do. Gentlemen, would you like to say anything else before we go? I have these rants. Is anyone still there? You guys, I have rants. Who's there?
No, ma'am. I think you closed it down for us.
No. You know what? I have rants. But I think about this. I think about the people who've been before us who have pushed Robert and Dr. Bryant and Mr. Littell. I think about the people who have pushed to own ourselves. One of the problems the reason they kept making Aretha Franklin's background, this legend, is you know what? Dick Gregory had it right. He did it in an American Masters special on her when they featured her, when they went through her career. They said what throws people off about Aretha is that you have to go through a black man to get to her daddy, who was already the most powerful black preacher in America. And he already put her on the church circuit, so she really didn't have to do pop music. She was already a rich woman when she got her first hit. He had to go through her daddy. She did not care. She was accustomed to a strong, powerful black man. So you couldn't say anything to her. You really couldn't. Think about that. Think about it. So does anyone want to say anything else? Hello? Hello? Y'all won't let me just go out here by myself like this? Are y'all still there?
We're still here. I think you got it to you.
No, we're
listening.
No, you're treating me like my mom, because it goes off. This is when I turn into Jackie Jackson. But I got it from her and I came by it honestly. But does anyone have any reaction to what I said? Anybody? You guys? I know you're not gonna believe me, I think myself, but I'll do it. That's okay.
Well, I agree. And I think that what we've seen.
Go ahead, Robert.
All I'll say is that you're completely correct. And what we've seen is even the example of LeBron James and clutch sports. Even today, when artists try to take control of themselves, they try to bring things to the black community. It is a fight, it's an uphill battle. Even till this day, people still criticize Rich Paul and clutch sports for putting together the Lakers, where they said that LeBron was the GM. They tried to push out Rob Pelinka, those sorts of things. So there's always going to be that pushback, but the people who are making the most progress are ones who don't care about the pushback.
Amen. Dr. Brian, Robert,
Santita, you said it extremely well, that people may not like you, but they will respect you, and that kind of is a sign of maturity when you get to the place where you know you've got to stand in your own shoes and you've got to represent yourself well. And just be thankful for the history of advocacy that has brought you to where you are. And at the same time, I think it's important that we all continue to lift as we climb. And in one of the things that you kind of alluded to earlier is that if you're not the talent, you can still have power around the talent. And so every powerful, talented person, needs to have an attorney like Robert DiVitillo, a PR media agent mogul like Robert Littall, an on-air spokesperson and representative like Santita Jackson. Everybody needs to have people around them that may not be the centerpiece of what people want to see, the person that makes the shot or hits the home run or scores the touchdown. But we need to encourage young people and those that are seeking career paths, that there are a lot of areas of sports and entertainment where you can make a lot of money and have a lot of influence. And you may not be the one on the record, you may not be the one on the screen, but you carry a lot of weight, have a lot of power doing what you do as a marketing agent, as an attorney, as a PR person, as a wealth management advisor. Whatever those talents may be that you have, utilize them and be a part of the cause and be a part of making someone great, because you're a part of a great team, and then everybody can win.
And no, you don't need to be a solo act, everybody. Nobody is.
Nobody.
Nobody. Either you have a team or you are flunking. Okay? You gotta have a team. Gotta have a team. Got to. That's something my mother and father emphasized. My mama in particular, every day. She said, you gotta be on the team. And I had a team of 7. And it's also interesting because, when you're answerable to people, you behave differently. When I look at Tiger Woods right now, I see him kind of like spiraling out because his daddy's missing. But his daddy also had other children. And I don't know what the connection is, but it's like, you need someone you need your team, and you need someone you trust who looks at your team and says, this person works, or know what the limitations are, know where this person is coming from. You need all of that. Michael Jackson's father, one of the conversations he had with him before he died was, he said, why are you you need to be paid in pounds, son. You don't need to be paid in dollars. He said, no, the euro. He said, the euro. That's what you need. That's worth more money. Because Michael was not trying to play 50 concerts at Wembley. Not at 50. No. No. No, we don't even know what that was about. He looked up and he was shocked. Because those were not the papers he signed. So, understand what this is about. This is power. This is power. Maria Taylor has power, not just because people will look at her and admire her. She will shape the conversation. Stephen Smith shapes the conversation. That's why Brown is on the low, getting to be so popular, because he's shaping the conversation too. Having a microphone, you shape the conversation, and you can make or break careers. You can do that. It's like, when you have this power, you need to handle it very responsibly, because it's not about you. God gave you the platform, and God thankfully can take it away. Whew. Robert Littal, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
I'm just soaking in all of these gems that you're giving out. And I hope people are listening as well because, through anybody's career, like you said, they have a platform. There's going to be highs and lows, ups and downs, people trying to bring you down, and you have to kind of like make that decision to, if you're going to be a positive influence, you're going to be a positive voice, learn from your mistakes, always try to do better. Or you're going to, like, I said previously, you're just going to look out for self, or you're going to become bitter, or you're going to become cold to it. And I think it's, family, and not to sound all like Vin Diesel and everything, but I think family really helps humble you, helps guide you, helps let you know that there's things bigger than, money and bigger than fame and bigger than, whatever you're trying to accomplish. If you have that foundation of family, which I always try to tell young black, people or black journalists coming up, like, you need that. You need something to ground you, to keep you humble, to keep your head straight. Someone that who loves you for you. Not what you can do for them, or not what they feel like they can take advantage of you for. So just us as people sticking by each other and realizing that we're the greater sum of our parts. And as Dr. Brian said, when we lift, while we're climbing, make sure we're lifting, as opposed to being crabs in the barrel and pushing each other down, because we have enough to worry about, as it is. If you're someone like Maria Taylor who just works hard, now you're dealing with something that you shouldn't have to deal with, and something that white journalists normally don't have to deal with as well. So I appreciate you having me on, and like I said, I learn every time I listen to your show, or I talk to Dr. Bryant or the Reverend as well, and I just try to take that knowledge and pass it down to the next person, and to try to help them as much as I can.
Well, and that's why I want everyone, please support Black Sports Online. Please do. He needs your support. He deserves your support. And he is speaking. It's a wonderful thing to be able to read and say, that's what I was thinking. That's why we miss Ebony and Jet. So, because they go, I thought, I thought so. I thought there was something. I knew there was something more to that. That's what you get from Black Sports Online. And you need to do that. And that's what you'll get from Robert Patillo's radio show every Sunday from 1 to 4. He'd be on every day, but he is a civil rights lawyer. He's on WAOK in Atlanta. He's a civil rights lawyer, and that is his passion at this time, and that's his thrust, and I respect that. But I'm so glad that he makes the time to do his radio show from 1 to 4. And of course, in addition to his duties with Rainbow Push, Dr. Bryant is a pastor, and he's a preaching machine. Got to come out to California so we can come to this church. Love it, love it, love it. I love you. I love you guys. Thank you so much. You all have made this show today. Who is nothing but the Lord that pulled this show together, because I was in the air last night and I missed like 5 hours. 5 hours, 5 hours. But I'm glad that I was able to get you guys, and thank you so much for always reaching back when I reach out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But you know what? Sports are so big. Dr. Bryant and Robert Littal of Black Sports Online, and Robert Patillo of his own radio show on WAOK every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, and of course, Dr. Bryant is head of Rainbow Push Sports and Silicon Valley. Um, it's very, very important that we support these outlets, really, really, because you need to have your story told, or the story told. And the story, when the story is told, everybody's point of view and experience is considered. Think about that, everybody. And just understand that there's always so much more going on behind the camera. Remember, business is twice as long as show. Remember that. Okay. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, there are politics to everything. So don't give me, oh, I don't want to do it because it's political. Everything's political. Your marriage is political. Every relationship is political. Get over it. Go up in your politics and advocate for yourself. And advocate for people who advocate for you. Not when they're dead. Everybody. Stop doing that. Everybody loved Malcolm after he'd been shot. What is that? Dr. King couldn't get in a pulpit. And the black pulpits that let him in, they paid a price. That's why we love Reverend Evans so much. Because Mayor Daley stopped him from building his church in Chicago, and we watched the beams rust. Because he can use his pulpit. Dr. King was the most unpopular black man in America. Yes, more than 55% of black people did not approve of him. But about 6:15, Thursday, April 4th, 1968, loved him. He was my guy. No, he wasn't. He wasn't in life. For the climate never would have been set for his assassination. Yeah, I put it out there because that's the truth. When it came to Jesus, we're the ones. The question was asked, do you want him or do you want these other two guys? We said, collectively, no, crucify him. No, him. Think about that, everybody. Grow up in your politics. Fight for yourself. We have got to make better decisions. We're not in this position just because some powerful people need. We make some bad decisions. We give our power away. Stop it. And do something new, different, and correct. Oh, Dr. Bryant, I love you. Robert Littall, I love you.
Love you, sis. Thank you so much.
Oh, hey, you're my guy. And of course, give my love to your wife. She's a Cancer just like me.
We will. Certainly will.
Yes. She's first lady. I love it. And Robert Patillo, love you much too. And Devin Andreas, love you all. And my morning stars, I love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. And everybody, go on and share this feed, because of course this is not going to be on the podcast on WCPT. But like and share, everybody. That's right, Janae. Quit giving away your power. That's what I'm saying. Stop it, and we give it away because you get scared. They're not going to like you. Well, maybe you'll make less money, but can you say you'll have more integrity? You'll have some respect. Honey, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have any respect, you have nothing. 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 Honey, I'd rather own a patch of grass than sit up on somebody's plantation. No. I want my own. No. When someone else owns you, they can clown you, and they do. Think about that. Not just freedom, Effie, liberty. And being alone. You don't need someone else to give you anything. There's some things that God gave you before you even got here. Take your power and use it in a godly way. I love you, everybody. I will see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. And you guys, I'll be seeing you, of course. I'm going to have you all on before we leave, because here we go to France on Wednesday night. But I'll be with you tomorrow and Wednesday on the Santita Jackson Show. I love you, everybody. That was up in boys, Sao Paulo, Brazil. All of you, I love you, love you, love you. Hannah, birthday month over here. All right, girl, you know what's up, what's going on. I love you, everybody. God bless you. See you tomorrow, Santita Jackson Show. Bye-bye.